Welcome to Girlfriends of a Certain Age, a podcast for women in midlife. We are busy living our best lives. I'm your co host, Fleshay Hesh. I'm a business coach and work life balance expert for women.
And I'm your co host, Jessica Neighbor. I'm a voice coach for vocalists and public speakers online at Impact Vocal Coaching. We are girlfriends in real life, and in every episode, we'll discuss a different hot topic about becoming wise women, recovering from being a good girl, and not giving a bleep anymore.
If you identify as a girlfriend of any age and you want to join our conversation, join us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com.
Hey, recovered good girl, Fleshay.
Oh, I love the sound of that. Hey, recovering good girl, Jessica. How are you
Well,
today?
I'm good. I'm good. You were the one that brought up that term in one of our other podcast episodes, and I just love that term. It stayed with me, and that is what we're going to dive into deep in a two-part episode, which we're so excited to share with you. And I
Feels
just
very
can't wait.
fancy to do a two-part episode. Feels very, I like it.
Well, we got a lot to talk about recovered good girls, right? And it for those of you listening, the idea of good girl, we'll explain it as we're explaining our own journeys is, the pressure either from our families or our culture at large to be a good girl, to please people, all that entails, and how now that we're coming into our, midlife girlfriends of a certain age, that's really shifting for us. So we want to talk about our journey to see what it took to get to this place. And we want to first start with our own experiences of it and see if you can relate to us. And then, Fleshay, do you want to share what we're going to do in the second episode with our listeners?
Yes, the second episode's pretty juicy. So, Jessica and I have been working on a worksheet, a little workbook for you to walk you through the steps of what we're talking about. So, actually, the podcast episode will be a supplement to the workbook so that if you are also on this journey of good girl recovery, if this resonates with you, if you hear this and it straightens your spine and you lean in a little bit, this is for you, and we will hold your hand through walking through this process. I also want to say very clearly that Jessica and I are not licensed psychotherapists. So we're not offering you therapy here.
Right.
What we're offering you is an opportunity to look at your story, give you some
Mm-hmm.
tools to work with it. This might get a little hot for you. If you're getting uncomfortable, you're crying, you're kind of worked up, that's a really good indication for you to back away from the work. And what I would do is I would take that workbook to your therapist, your counselor, your coach. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have one, it might be a good time to find one and,
Mm-hmm.
to really help hold your hand through this process because you are not meant to do anything alone. You are not
Mm-hmm.
meant to suffer alone. You are not meant to struggle alone. There are so many people who want to hold you up, but most people don't know how to help you, how to hold your hand, what you might need. This workbook might be the thing that helps you get to where you're going. So just
Yeah.
bring it with you to your therapist. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that
Mm-hmm.
this topic feels so hot and so rich for us and all of our girlfriends that we're
Yeah.
talking to about this that we thought it's just time to bring this to a wider audience. And midlife is the most incredible time to reclaim yourself, your voice.
Mhm.
And so that is the journey that we are very excited to take you on
We
today.
are, and we're going to take you on our personal journey and our personal ride right now and kind of, tell you about our stages and what our background informed us to do. And then, you can be thinking about it as well. So, Fleshay, we're going to put you in the spotlight first. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, why don't
So
you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey and what it felt like to be young Fleshay and what it feels like to be a girlfriend of a certain age Fleshay now. Tell us about your journey.
Oh, yes. So I am the oldest of five children,
Mm.
and I've always had a lot of responsibility. Now, whether or not that was laid on me, or I just raised my hand, or I just started doing it, I'm not sure. I've reached a point in my life where I don't really care anymore why or
Mhm.
how I got there. All I know is that I was there.
Yeah.
And part of that identity, and this became a huge part of my identity, is
Mm.
I am a good girl. I'm going
Mm.
to follow the rules. I'm going to toe the line. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to do
Mhm.
everything I can to make everyone's life around me easier. Again, I don't know exactly all the details of how all of that worked, and I'm not here to lay blame. I'm here
Right.
to accept full responsibility for even my little girl self, right? And that little
Yeah.
girl is still part of me. She's still inside of me, and I can still take care of her. But this is what she decided to do. Even as young as 2 and 3, I can remember feeling like I had to check in on my grown-ups. Everyone okay?
Mm.
When,
Mhm.
oh, the baby sisters need something, I'll just go toddle over and figure it out myself. So I'm
Mhm.
not really sure how it all came to be, but there it
Mhm.
was. And then it just became part of the story. If I did
Mm.
anything wrong, stepped out of line, I was harder on myself than anybody was on me. And I
Mm.
remember the story of, I'm good. I better
Mm.
do better. I'm a
Mm.
good girl. I better figure out, maybe I don't understand all the rules. I'm going to really pay attention and find out the rules so I can be the good one. And
And
so,
that's the goal. That's the tricky part, isn't it? Because the good is never good enough, right? That's the elusive unicorn that we're all chasing after.
exactly. And
Yeah.
nobody really defines what good is. Oh, you're being such a good girl. You're being
Yeah.
so helpful. What a
Mm.
good girl. In this third grade class, you did such and such. It was
Mhm.
very interesting, right? I got a lot of feedback and
Mhm.
praise for being a
Yeah.
good girl. Oh, I see
Sure.
you're being a good girl. I see you're trying to be a good girl.
Yeah.
And when I became a teenager, I remember having some grown-ups around me kind of using that on me. Well, you're such
Uh-huh.
a good girl. I know we don't have to worry about you.
Oh
Mm.
boy. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
subtext on that was, don't embarrass us, don't get knocked up, don't get
Toe the
yourself
line,
sick, toe the
stay in
line,
line. Uh-huh.
don't get in trouble. So
Right.
that was very loaded, very,
Yes.
very loaded. Again, not fully unpacked. Even though I trained to become a therapist myself, I still haven't unpacked all that, but I've gotten to a stage where I don't really care.
Mm.
All I know is that this was continuing for me. And I kept going
Ah!
with it. It was almost like it became like my pride, like, oh, I'm
Sure.
good.
You're
I'm
a very
good.
good girl. You were really good at being good,
Yeah.
right? And you
And
got
what
praised for it, and it makes
I
so much
got
sense.
praised. And the cost is flattened me. The cost of being a
Mm.
good girl flattened me. And I think, probably started around the age of 13, 14. That
Mm.
good girl, like, and like not speaking up for myself. Something bad would happen or somebody would do something to me. I
Mm.
didn't want to get them in trouble. I didn't want to
Mm.
cause a problem. It
Mhm.
was it was a really it was very serious. I look back on it now, and because I wasn't complaining, everyone just thought, Flaché's got this. She's got this. Look how mature
Yeah.
she is. She's not complaining. She's got
Yeah.
everything going.
Yeah.
Um, and I started attracting so many toxic and narcissistic people
Mm.
because, and we'll talk about this in another episode, it's like a little dance. The good girl or the empath or the sensitive person attracting the difficult person or the
Mm.
narcissist or the toxic person. And it
Mhm.
becomes this lock and key. We kind of need each other, right? If
Right.
I have the story that I'm good,
Right.
helping you makes me
Yeah.
even better. And I see that you are a broke down, sad sack, and you need help and you need love and you need kindness. And turns out my whole life I've been a bottomless well of just that.
Yeah.
Yay! I'm going to fix you and you're going to get the love and support you need from me, right?
It's
And
true. And just to add to that, it's like we get our self-worth, we get the pats on the back, and so we think by helping these helpless or difficult people that we're going to really define ourselves. So it becomes a very codependent relationship with people, or it can be.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I was a full participant in that crazy charade.
Sure.
And that is most of what my recovery has
Yeah.
been from. right? These
Mm.
situations that I put myself in, even though I, as you can see, there were a lot of cultural, social,
Yeah.
personal influences that had me get to that place. And so when
Mm-hmm.
I think about how many narcissistic boyfriends I had, or
Oh.
narcissistic girlfriends I
Oh.
close. One of them I let keep a toothbrush at my house. I was like, oh, you need so much care. Here, you can pretend like my house is your extra house,
Wow.
because like in case of a quick getaway or whatever. Like
Wow.
that is how in deep I got. How
Yes.
deep. And so untangling, unsticking, unhooking, and scary things like having a narcissistic boss. Oh,
Mm.
oh my gosh. I mean,
Oh
the
dear.
situations that I got in with that,
Oh dear.
a bad scene, really
Sure.
bad scene. And so now in my embracing this fullness of myself, the light
Mm-hmm.
and the dark, and I call
Mm-hmm.
that grace. And when I can see
Mm-hmm.
all of myself, the good
Mm-hmm.
parts and the not so good parts, I can
Yes.
really stand in grace and see myself and appreciate everything I've been through, even the things I put myself through,
Sure.
and people and situations I allowed into my life. But I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
And I'm not here to say that was an easy process. I got in a lot of trouble for
Mm.
suddenly saying no,
Mm-hmm.
and here, and take your toothbrush back with you. You know,
Yeah.
or like, but what? Why would you
Right.
be so harsh, Flachet, when you've always been accommodating?
Mm-hmm.
It's another cultural problem we have. Nobody
Mm.
likes it when a woman says no
That's
for
right.
whatever reason.
That's right.
And
Well, we, in so many ways in our culture, we're props, right? We're props for, the patriarchy. And so when we become our full selves, like you were saying, the good and the bad and all of it, it makes us more complicated, full human beings. So in the greater culture at large, it's like only certain people are allowed to be them full selves, and
exactly.
others are literally the backup characters that are propping them up.
And what do women get called when they take charge, when they make
Oh,
boundaries, when they're
yes.
clear
Oh,
and
yes.
they know what they will and they won't accept? They
Yeah.
get called
The
bitches.
B word. They sure
Yeah,
do. Time
they
and time.
really
And
do.
little girls pick up on that loud and clear. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I've one more question for you. What was your you don't have to get into the details about it if you don't want, but what was the healing process for you? Did you seek any, support? Did you get any therapy? Did you do what was your treatment for yourself?
That's a great question. Yeah. So what happened was I had a close girlfriend and a boyfriend,
Mm,
both mega narcissists, like so
mm.
bad that even their families were talking about how can you hang out with them? They're such narcissists.
Oh
So
boy.
so like it was really bad. And people, I think even their family, they were worried about me. Like, whoa, is Flachet going to be okay when she
Yeah.
tries to unhook? Because I was already starting to pull away, and from both of them.
That's
And
so
so
hard to have that at the same time. Like you would turn to the girlfriend for what was going on with your boyfriend, but then she was just as bad. Oh,
the
oh, that's so
gaslighting
rough.
was off the chain. It was
Oh, that's so
crazy.
hard. Yeah.
So for me, I think the universe had to punch me here and punch me in the
Oh,
gut for me to wake up and
yeah.
see that it is not an accident that I have two people who I was holding close. I mean, I was
Mm,
actively holding them close to me and they were hurting me.
mm,
And so for me, that is what it was. And so it was like having a hangover for a
yeah.
long time. And
Yeah.
so that's when I realized, and this was all before I trained to become a therapist. So I
Mm,
was not really entrenched in that world yet, but
mm-hmm.
I knew this is not normal. This is not
Yeah.
normal for me. I don't feel well. I don't feel good. And I took myself to therapy. And so
Mm,
I found a therapist who was able to support me. And actually what it was like slowly opening my eyes. That's what
mm,
the process was like, because it was um when you pull away from people like that, they
mm-hmm.
come after you, right? That's some
Oh, they
of the
don't like it.
that's some of the unspoken threat, and it's partly why we keep them in our lives, because we know they're dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And so that is the backlash of that. It's called flying monkeys, when they enlist other people who
Mm-hmm.
you like, know, and trust to
Mm-hmm.
then you use their messaging against you.
Oh, that's so
right? So it's
nasty.
not
That's
just the
so,
toxic
yeah,
person, but then
yeah,
people that you thought were your friends or your loved ones are now
right.
coming after you or freezing you out. And
Wow.
so for me, it was just like, oh, okay, I've seen you do this to other people. Oh,
Right.
and now you're doing it to me. And so the therapist just taught me the phrases. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a flying monkey.
And narcissists are so black and white thinkers that you're either with them or against them. So the moment
Yeah,
you spoke your truth to them, they couldn't tolerate that, right? So then
right.
they had to turn on you and try to get their army of flying monkeys to turn on you. And that's a very, very like painful feeling, especially for a
Oh,
good girl.
a good
So I
girl.
want to commend you, the good girl who did that and really got like some vitriol and still you were able to. And that's why, like, when I think about like women who are in the public eye who are able to do that and still be true to themselves, I'm just like, I feel like we don't give those women enough props. Like, Serena Williams is coming to mind right now because she's in the news about retiring, and just the feelings that someone has to hold on to keep their truth and to like keep their grace through all of that. So sorry, I went a little bit on a huge world moment there, but
The core of what you and I are talking about with this is that
yeah,
getting to the other side of this ugliness
yeah,
is where there is peace and where there
yes,
is power and there is
yes,
perspective. So three
yeah,
P's. And so you
ah,
once you get to that, you realize, oh, it's kind of like when you were a kid, sticks and
yeah,
stones, right?
yeah,
It's just words. It's just
yeah,
someone who maybe wasn't my good friend anyways. If she was able to be turned against me or believe someone else's story,
yeah,
then there is absolute power. And now I
yes,
am more powerful in my life than I ever have been before.
absolutely,
And
absolutely,
I can smell the situations. I can smell those people. That's like, and they still come up to me. They're still trying to get into my world. They're still trying to
right,
mess with me. But I'm just kind of like, oh, I just have a whole new skill set to work with it and
right,
manage myself and manage them.
right,
Right.
absolutely,
And so
amen,
it gets you to your superpower. And that is what no
yeah,
one talks about. No
right,
one talks about that piece. So
right,
I want to piggyback on that with hearing your story.
okay,
What brings you to your girl recovery?
yeah. And just one observation about all of it too is, along with those three P's, it's like it's living your truth. And as long as we're trapped in the good girl role, how can we live our truth? Because no one is a good girl all the time. That's an impossible role. And you can certainly go chasing it. And I think a lot of us have had a similar experience to you, at least in parts of our lives where we were chasing that good girl, those accolades. And I'm sure there's a lot of good boys in recovery too, who got props for being the man of the house, or the golden child. And so I think that I can really relate that it's like living your full self. You have to face some fears, some ugliness, some weaknesses, and so I can really relate to that. Okay, so do you want to hear my shebang?
Give it to us.
Okay. So it's so funny when I was thinking about this and preparing for this episode about what was my journey like. The first thing that popped into my mind was also a middle school memory. And you were mentioning being 13. I think that's a pivotal age because we're coming into puberty and we're suddenly starting to see the way like the larger culture at large works. And so I'll get to my childhood in a moment, but really I remember, you know, being someone who's like a outspoken person and an entertainer. I remember the thing that really, really pissed me off in middle school was that the girls weren't allowed to be funny or outspoken. And the popular boys always dated the quiet girls. And that was at least my experience. So the messaging I was getting was, okay, you need to be cute, you need to be pretty, you need to laugh at the boys, but don't talk too much and don't have too strong opinion.
Oh, ouch.
So, I internalized that, also like growing up around like the Marsha Brady's and sort of like these impossible standards and like what that meant for me. But I remember that really pissing me off at an early age and being like, why can't girls be funny? Why can't girls get the laughs? Why can't the boys laugh at the girls too? And I think it comes back to that, like, because you're a prop. right? You are supposed to boost up your man. And so you can't be this filled out being. And then growing up, I had a very mixed experience in my young childhood because I grew up in two households. My parents were divorced. And I will say that in my mom's household, she is a very full personality and she encouraged me to be a full personality. And so did my stepdad. And so I could really speak my mind. But then I would go over to my father's house and it was a totally different situation where I had to minimize myself and make myself small again. And so I really had to start playing these different roles. And I had to play different roles in different houses. And kind of like you with your besties and your boyfriend, I felt like that going back and forth between my homes. And there came a breaking point in middle school where I said, I can't live in that one house anymore. I need to go to my more authentic house. And thank goodness I had that option and that opportunity to do that. So that was a real pivotal moment. And then I would say that in my teens and 20s, I really realized that I was passionate about performing. And that was always such a tricky thing because you'll find in performing communities that there's so many outspoken women and so much expression and exploration about gender and gender roles. But like the greater culture at large is behind the times. So the movies you watch, the plays you see are still so backwards. So I went to UCLA to study theater. And then when I graduated and I was in LA doing the acting thing, it was like good girl all over again. You know, I felt like I kind of came up and got my training and was like, I'm ready to use my voice. And then everything you saw was like, okay, minimize yourself again, right? Like, okay, these are all the rules. So I think in my industry, I recognized just how toxic and really difficult that industry is to be a full outspoken woman. And you can learn about these crazy statistics from people like Gina Davis, who like will study just how many lines are in movies for women compared to men, how much women are paid. I mean, the whole shebang. As I then started to age, and I really also think through my coaching, getting to work with young people in their performance lives, helping them fill out their voices, helping them speak their truths and mentor them in their journeys in the performance industry has been really healing for me because I can talk to that old me and go, well, you don't have to take that from that director. That sounds abusive. We need to stop that person. And just, really giving the younger generation the opportunities that I don't feel like I either was able to have or I put on myself. Because like you, Felicia, I definitely identify as someone who was a people pleaser and an entertainer and got, applause for that. So if I made anyone upset, I wasn't getting those applause, and that was very, very confusing for me. And I think finally the breaking point through therapy as well and through a really healing journey was I can't please everyone all the time. This good girl role that I'm chasing, and even for me, related to the good girl role, was sort of like, the good girl performer, that who can get all those accolades. It just came falling apart. And through the falling apart of that, I was able to recognize, wait a minute, when I actually tell people I don't want to do that, when I tell people this doesn't feel right for me and I speak my truth, I feel that much closer to myself. And I feel that much closer to the people who I can be real with. I can be real with my partner. I can be real with those true friends. I don't have to always be good and always be happy and always be charming because I'm not. And no one feels that way. And, just between you and me, when I look at a lot of women at our age, I just feel like there are so many of us going, I am done with that role. And then I also feel a certain responsibility when I see younger women and the pressures that are still on them, and just not having that life experience yet. and just wanting to say, you don't have to waste your time, reclaim it. Like how much time did we spend doing these impossible things? So I really am grateful. And I honestly, about getting older, I know that everyone complains about the wrinkles and the aches and the pains, but this part of it, and this feeling that we gave this whole podcast a tagline of not giving a shit, I think is so connected to this feeling of living our real, full, authentic selves. And that means the messy, the good days, the bad days, you name it, because we are full human beings. We are not props.
Oh, we are nobody's props.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you resonate with the idea that you have a superpower now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when we find our own voice and we find our own truth, that is our superpower. That is truly our superpower. There's nothing more empowering than that. So, yes, I completely identify with that superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. So to our listener, I'm
Yeah.
just like so excited to hear about what your journey is about this. So we want to talk a
Yes.
little bit about some ideas that we had about being a good girl. So I want you to listen carefully and see if you hear yourself in any of these.
Today's episode is brought to you by Impact Vocal Coaching. Do you need to improve your public speaking skills? You can increase your confidence and skill with my new training course. It's called Impact, the Essential Public Speaking Course for your online and in person presentations with me, voice coach Jessica Neighbor. You will improve your speaking effectiveness for your meetings, for your podcasts, and for your social gatherings with girlfriends of a certain age. I'm an international voice coach and author, and I've been teaching professionally for 20 years. You'll learn valuable speech skills in my streamlined 6-step process. And listeners of Girlfriends of a Certain Age get 2 bonuses when you join soon. You can join the Impact Vocal Coaching course at impactvocalcoaching.com. Hope to see you inside. Stay calm and speak on.
Self, right? That a good girl does what she is told. If that's something that resonates with you, you might be someone on that path, or maybe about to take the path to recovery, or stepping into it as
Mm-hmm.
well, right? So she
Yep.
also keeps her head down and her mouth shut.
Oh
Have you
boy,
done
that
that?
was you heard how hard that was for me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She may or may not know her own mind, feelings, and emotions. Oh, she may not even know what she's feeling because she's trying so hard to be that good girl. I can relate to
And there
that.
are so many other voices in her head. And if you're someone who identifies as being an empath, or you call yourself a highly sensitive person,
Yeah,
you might actually be picking up on other people's stuff, aches and pains,
yeah.
fears, worries, stresses, anger, frustrations, and even ruminating conversations. So
And we're
that,
trained. We're trained. If we're good at it, we get very trained, like you're saying, and our antennas work for it. So
yeah,
there's some training involved in that. I'll
so
go
true.
over just a couple more. She doesn't want to rock the boat. She doesn't want to make anyone mad. Oh, that one hits home so much for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't want to make you mad. What will it take so that you're not mad? Don't be mad at me. I'm
don't be
good.
mad at me.
So how can you be mad at me if I'm good? You can't be mad at me if
Exactly.
I'm good.
Wait, good girls don't make people mad. Eee!
Mm.
It's so impossible. I feel claustrophobic the more and more I think about this good girl role because it's impossible. I feel like I'm in a straitjacket, you know? Oof.
She wants to be liked.
Oh
And
yeah.
that feels very connected to not making you mad so that you will
Yes.
like me.
Yes.
It's a messy
Absolutely.
tangle. It
Oh,
is
it's
so
so
messy.
messy. It's so complicated. This is going to be so helpful. She wants to be valued for her goodness. Oh, yeah. And she has been trained to live this way. Ooh, this is a juicy one. She has been trained to live this way either by trauma, neglect, or because she was raised by mentally unstable adults. Maybe her parents or culture believe this is how girls should walk through the world. Oh boy.
And I know we can all think of examples of this, whether it's the family or culture that we grew up in or others that we see, right? Or that we experience. And so I guess that, the question too is, what are we willing to do to free ourselves and free the women around us?
Yeah.
Because to me,
Mm.
there's an opening in the culture.
Yes.
There's been a split.
Yes.
And what are we going to fill it with? More nonsense? Or are we
Yes.
going to fill it with empowerment and equality?
You're
Whatever
also
that looks like.
you're bringing up something so important about girlfriends, which is we need to, as recovered good girls, allow each other to not be the good girls, right? So if we ever feel that trigger, and I can totally relate to this, to someone who says something very outspoken or something that's against the grain, it's a little sharp. I mean, as long as they're, saying it with some level of respect, that should be accepted, right? And so we have to be very careful of how much of this we've internalized, because if I find myself being a little resentful at someone who was so clear about what they wanted or did not want, I have to check my own good girl, conditioning on that one.
Yeah. This also brings up another point for me, which is that when I think back on my own story, it's been women who reinforce the good girlness far more than men in my life. If anything, I think more men kind of like it when women get kind of saucy and push back
Yeah.
at them. But it's been far more women who tried to have their boot on my throat to keep me quiet, to keep me
Mhm.
down, to keep me calm, to keep me towing the line.
Yes.
Far more than men. And most of the people that I know with similar stories,
Right.
it's the same, that
Well, it's
it's
like, how dare you do that? If I can't do that, you can't do that.
exactly.
Yeah.
If I had to be good my whole life, you will
Yeah.
too, damn it.
That's
Yeah.
right. And that's that generational pool too, of like, how dare these young ones think they can do that? So I think of our middle-aged selves too, we need to really understand what our young girlfriends are going through. Those girls that are coming into their own, because they might be more aware of things and that might trigger us. And so that's really, really important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with, we've got a
Okay.
few more of these. She's
Sure.
afraid of her own power and her voice.
Good girls can't be powerful. Good girls
Mm.
can't speak up unless it's yay.
You did good. You're great. How can I support you? Right.
Oh my gosh, yes. And she is afraid to speak up, even if she has been hurt emotionally or physically. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a very important one.
And she can make herself invisible. And I think there was a time when I thought that was my superpower. I can
Mm,
be invisible,
mm,
right? Because there was
hmm.
so much I was stuffing down that invisibility and keeping my mouth shut
Yeah,
seemed far easier than to rock the boat and cause trouble and potentially get myself in trouble, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my question to our beautiful listener is, what did we miss? What else
Mm,
what were you waiting for us to say that we didn't say? Put it down in the comments down below. And if
mhm,
you're listening to this on our Anchor channel, you can leave a voice message for us so we can actually
mhm.
hear your voice. We want to empower you to open up and say what needs to be said. So go ahead and leave us a comment down below. And I want you to get ready for the next episode because
Mhm.
we will be walking you through the workbook. We will be talking about the different steps to the good girl recovery.
Yes, yes. And we're really excited to do it together because, like Felicia said at the beginning, no one should have to go through this alone. And we're here to kind of walk through this together. And as we're discovering these things for ourselves, just like you
Thank you
are. For tuning in today to Girlfriends of a Certain Age podcast.
Do you have a girlfriend who needs to hear this message? Share this episode with her. She will love you forever.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and comment wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we discuss more hot topics about girlfriends living their best lives. You can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com.